Hello and welcome to Consciously Awesome Living here on Soulivity TV. I am your host, Sheila Applegate, and we are talking about how to help you live your most brilliant divine life. And we talk about it consciously, right? Because the more conscious you are on all the levels of consciousness, the more you can draw that into your daily life and feel that alignment with the way things are unfolding within your life. So today we're going to go with a bit of a broader stroke because I want to talk to you about Pluto's return and the impact that it's going to have or is already having on the United States and then therefore the world. It's pretty fascinating. And I am not super into astrology. I know it's ancient and it has held up for a long time and it certainly has truth to it. I'm not denying any of that. It's just not something that I study or really focus my attention on. One of the things that I think about sometimes is, does our belief create our reality or does our reality create our belief? And because of that, I'm always a little hesitant to hear too much about astrology and that impact because of how I may adjust my behavior and then create something that I either want or don't want. But that happens with everything. It happens with readings. It happens with the messages I bring through, all of this. So when it comes to astrology, if something piques my interest, then I know that I am supposed to listen to that. And then in this case, I definitely got that sense that I'm supposed to share it with you as well. One of the reasons Pluto's return piqued my interest is because it has to do with Pluto. Now, I have a little affinity to Pluto because when my youngest child, Justin, was little, they said to me, I used to live on Pluto. I was like air, but not really. Now, when a little child says that to you, you really, it captures your attention, especially for someone like me. But when you think about that, so I got fascinated. Well, what's going on with Pluto? What type of energies are living on Pluto? What would Justin have been to be air, but not really, right? So then a few years later, when all of a sudden Pluto was declassified as a um, planet, I thought to myself, well, maybe Pluto ascended. They were in that vibrant vibration. Maybe they ascended. So now with time, we understand the science of that declassification is because they consider it a dwarf planet and it has to do with size. Does that negate the other possibilities? I have no idea. And do we know that Justin actually he was a frequency that was like air on Pluto? No, we do not know that. But for that reason, I have a very interested heart for that. And lately, you have probably been hearing in February, I think, is when the actual Pluto return began. And there's talk about it being impactful on the United States and therefore the world. And that kind of got my attention too, because I was like, well, how can it be Pluto return? Meaning that it's the first time in 246 years that Pluto has crossed over the United States. And Pluto's very slow moving, you can tell. And so this will take a long period of time to impact us. Now, remember, this country was already full of society. The Native Americans and many different cultures were already here and living beautiful, vibrant lives. And then the country was placed on this. So it isn't for the continent, it is for the country. So I thought, well, how do you know the birthday of a country in order to say that this is Pluto's return and to do a astrological chart of it? And what I researched and found out is that they use the birthday of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So that's July 4th, 1776. And when you use that chart, they have noted various things that had happened in alignment with that chart. For the United States, including things like 9/11 and the recession of 2008, which I'm going to talk to you about too. So there's some evidence that this chart works for the United States, and it is also, there are charts for other countries, and the changes that have occurred in other countries when they were in Pluto's return, actually are significant in history too. So we have some background of why people are paying attention to this. Now, I like to use astrology as a way of confirming what I've already been seeing. And that's where the interest comes with what is being talked about with Pluto's return here. It began officially, I believe, on February 20th or 22nd. And then it will continue to November of 2024. So we're talking a long span. Now, it isn't like Mercury retrograde where we're going to say everything's in chaos until this is over and throw up our hands. I use Mercury retrograde because I have always joked I didn't believe in Mercury retrograde because it always seems to be, and people are complaining about electronics and communication. And more and more I would notice the chaos and then find out it was Mercury's retrograde. And I had to kind of concede to, okay, but I still don't always want to know, right? Because I don't want to create more havoc. And I think that's the other reason I want to talk about Pluto's return, because some people are seeing this as a catastrophe type of energy, like we should be concerned about that. I actually think we can be excited about it, but it is everybody's own perspective. So go ahead and do your own research on some of the things I'm telling you about astrology, because like I said, I am not an astrologist. I'm putting together the pieces as it made sense to me. But the reason people are maybe talking about concern about what could happen, I think there's two sets. There's people very excited and then people who are frightened about it. I think we are very much already in it. As I said, some of the astrologers that I listened to talked about 2008 being a beginning of this cycle, and in the larger picture of how things fit together. And we saw the recession there. That is important because this is meant to impact. Pluto is known for death and destruction and rebirth. That's the catastrophe, right? People don't always like death, but the rebirth is essential in this too. But it also is known to affect systems. So we're not talking about individuals, but we're rather talking about the systems. And in this case, capitalism, as I would interpret it, which has been kind of predominant in our country since the beginning. And that's why it impacts the world as this is occurring. And the idea is that there will be a significant ending of one cycle and then the rebirth of the new. So there is some excitement in that for those of us who are wanting a change and feeling a change. One of the things that is interesting to me is that in the summer of 2008, before the crash, I did a channeling, and they showed me our economic system tumbling, and businesses that were of the old paradigm of maybe I want to call it greed of the old paradigm of capitalism, the get more and more, they would tumble. And then there would be a period of time where the others that were maybe on the fence, kind of playing in both the old and new paradigm, there would be this period of time where they would have a chance to get it together to make that shift. And then, if not, then that would kind of tumble as the new paradigm of um, financial flow or economics, new paradigm of creativity and living would rise up, and community. So that we have seen happening. And then when we add the death and destruction and we look at what's been happening since 2020, we certainly have been faced with a tremendous amount of death. We've seen the rising up of all of the things that were buried. And that, I think, is key too. That's what Pluto's return does, is it brings out the shadow side. So if we look at the last couple of years in which we were in this energy, because it is so slow, we're talking a cycle of many years with a height right about now. So that bringing up of all the buried shadows in our country, the United States, maybe all countries do. This is the country I know the most, but we certainly have buried a lot of history. And you see that with the fights that are going on now about what should be taught in school. Should the truth be taught? Should history be taught? Or should we just move on? Yeah, we want to move on, right? We want the new paradigm. We want the unity, the community. We want to be beyond this, but we couldn't get beyond this without looking at what was buried. And buried in our history is racism and genocide of the indigenous people who were here. And in the infrastructure, which is what Pluto impacts, we have embedded within that racism and economic hierarchy that only serves the elite. And so all of those things have been rising to the surface with the help of nature and COVID and and just the human behavior that has brought up throughout this last couple of decades, even the politics and the presidency that made it difficult for us to turn our heads from what we were seeing has allowed us to start looking at the shadows. So I do believe that we're full force into the part of the death and the destruction and the raising up of the shadows. And the more we look at them, the more that we have the opportunity for that rebirth to occur, to replace the old paradigm with something new. And that's what excites me so much about this possibility that our financial and structural aspects, the capitalism that has become almost like a cancer. I want to say metaphorically, it's not even almost, right? To me, I see it as become out of control, just like cancerous cells would. And so, um, because of that, we now have this opportunity to bring it up, to clear it, and to bring in the new structure. And that to me is very exciting. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a very quick break. And then, when you get back here in just a few minutes, then I'm going to open up and bring in a message for us as we move forward.
You can find all the Satonic products at our Go shop on Soulivity at go.soulivity.com now. Shop for beauty products, skincare, hair care. It is all there at the Go shop. Go shop Soulivity.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
Welcome back, and let's keep talking about Pluto's return. As I was talking about just before the break, there is a huge potential for us in the United States to have a paradigm shift, and it will affect the infrastructure of the country. I just want to I'm going to open up and bring in a message from the Divine Feminine to give us an insight from that perspective, because I think that will be very fun and exciting for us to move forward in the most brilliant way. I want to just clarify anything, because I did say I'm not an astrologist. So if you want to look things up, I want to repeat a couple things. Go ahead and do your own research. I will put a link to one of the videos that I watched that I really liked. But the chart that is used for the United States, the birth chart, is for the Declaration of Independence signing. There is a time, I don't know the time, but they use the birth chart for July 4th, 1776, if you're interested in looking into that. And I want to clarify, Pluto is about death and destruction. It's because Capricorn is in our house at that time. Now, this is when I'm talking language I don't understand, so you go do the work. Capricorn is in our house, and that's why it's going to affect the finances. It's in the second house, I guess. You do that part. I'm going to channel, because we'll go right to the source beyond the stars, and we'll get a message for what we're going to bring forth in this beautiful time of transformation. And just remember, when you hear about it, if you have been hearing about it, always look for the love and the potential in it. Things can be messy, but they've already been messy. And let's look to the light. Let's look to the end of this, to what we want to create on the other side of it and how we can participate in that. So for those of you who don't know, I have been channeling Divine Spirit for about 20 years. And what I will do is I will tune into my own inner frequencies in alignment with the divine, and expanding my attention to bring in the energy. I do believe we are going to be bringing in Isis, the Divine Feminine, the goddess of 1,000 names, because I also believe that the Divine Feminine is important as we look at this change, because not only are we bringing in a very needed shift in the capitalistic society, but we are also rebalancing that male drive, that driven, and I'm not talking about men, I'm talking about the male frequency, the divine male versus the divine feminine, and how they interconnect with each other. So the masculine energy has been that single focus leadership pushing forward. You think of the hunter, right? And as we move through, we will want to be changing and shifting and expanding that infrastructure to include more of that open hearted divine feminine, which has that ability to think of the bigger pictures, to see the tiny detail, but to be aware of how everything connects. if we go back to the hunter and the gatherer, the women typically were the ones out looking for the berries, foraging for the food, and they had to be aware of everything while raising the kids and making sure that there was not any danger around. So that sort of broader, how does everything fit in together? So I'm just going to take a moment. I do tend to close my eyes during the channeling. I have been opening them more lately, so you may see my eyes, but you'll mostly can even turn inward yourself, as I will be joining my energies with the goddess of 1,000 names that today I will call Isis. Creator of all that is, I give thanks, aligning my energies with all of my frequencies from the tiniest cells of my body through to the expansion of oneness that I am. I surrender myself now, expanding my attention to include the goddess frequency that I know as Isis, that she may speak through me today, giving us guidance, insight, and understanding in the unfolding path that is in alignment with Pluto's return. And I give thanks. My dear ones, it is such a pleasure to be here today. I know in your time, in your frequency, and as you navigate the earth, it feels like quite some time. I am the one that Sheila channeled all those years ago in 2008 of your time, and therefore it is with great honor and excitement and exaltation that I come to you again today to help you navigate this time period. We do know that the Earth frequency has incorporated much understanding, and of course astrology has been part of the unfolding understandings for many centuries here on this planet. Therefore, I will shift my attention and my words now to help you bring together the flow of this energy and the piece that you would like to play in this. Because as I say to you this now, there are energies that are affecting various aspects of your world. And even as they affect this, they affect you, for you are part of a collective, part of an individual collective that is here for you in this moment. And yet that collective also has an individual personality, that is you, and you get to play the role that you desire. Now, you may look upon this and you may see the destruction, you may see the pain, and you may fear, for you may believe very strongly that what is going on in this world as it is a wonderful thing. And perhaps capitalism, as you would say, has been very generous to you. And I am not putting you down for having achieved that in this paradigm. But what I am saying to you now, if that is the case for you, do you have enough now that you would reach out and expand that paradigm to include others? And we say this because once you have reached a point in which you have achieved that which you have desired on the financial realm, as it is in humanity at this point, in an individualistic way, you may find some satisfaction, or you may find that that did not give you satisfaction and that there is more to this earth experience than to play that game. And so now you must look around you and you will see that beyond the finances, though that is a focal point of this, is the paradigm. And the paradigm of individuality can only get you so far. The paradigm of separation can only get you so far. Even as we have said, there have been many countries, and you could have an identity with a country, an area, a community, be it your neighborhood, your city, or your country. But now you have a global community to face, and that is not a coincidence, as it is a time in which humanity must come together beyond culture and division to a space of unity, because the phase of the world moving forward is far more about unity and community than individuality. You have wondered if other planets have reached points like this, and do they just simply get destroyed? What happens to the energies that live on them? And what will happen to your planet? Because we can see the tie to capitalism and the evolution of the Earth, global warming as you are calling it, and the impact that that has upon that. But we also see that there is an evolution within the earth, and one must remember that you are not only connected to other people, be they people that you know or people you have never met, people whose beliefs align with you or do not, people who look like you and people who do not look like you. That is a very important piece as you come together. But so is the piece that it is beyond the humans. There are the people, as my host, as Sheila would say. She calls all of us people, whether we are in the frequency of spirit or earth or humanity or the animal kingdom. She likes to call us all people. And so I say to you, whatever those people be, whether they be plants or animals or rocks or earth or stars, you are connected to all of them, and it is that remembrance that will move you forward. We do take great joy in the fact, though I know it has been uncomfortable, that things have been rising to the surface, and it feels as if there is an infinity of energies that have been buried that could come up. And we say to you, you do not need to be concerned with how much is buried, because there are energies that can assist in it. And if you can imagine a beautiful violet flame encompassing the United States and the world, we can bring those energies to the surface and dissipate them very quickly. So we ask that you join in, not just with your minds and not just in your protective mode of how do I get through this time, but in seeing the beauty of the connectedness that is to come, in seeing the energies that are here to support you, in finding joy that is for you, and then reaching out to others, of finding the likeness in another person, even in the division that has been set up. Look for the new paradigm and always look to the younger generations. For the younger generations come equipped within them the knowledge that will be necessary for the future. And because of that, they are essential to this shift. If you are of the old paradigm simply by your age and you were just simply raised in that and your heart is saying, I am tired, we understand. You have brought us to this point. You may rest now. You may receive now. You may let the next generation take this forward, for they have the wisdom and the knowledge for what we are bringing. Do not be afraid of the destruction, for within that is the rising. For every tree that topples, new trees grow. It does take time. It does take time, and yet the process has already been occurring. You, as a United States, is a very young country, and you will grow as every other group of humanity has grown. We are here to support you. Lean on us, rely on us, and feel that hope rising up within you, for it is the hope that will carry us all through to the new paradigm, to the new vibrant energy that is in front of us. We are nearly through the difficult part. You may now place your attention on the joy of what you wish to create, and we give you thanks. I give thanks to Isis and all the beings of light. I give thanks to all of you for being here today, for listening to me and the Divine Feminine. And I will see you again next week as we create together this beautiful new vibrant earth that is rising.